This fake RTX 4080 destroys the RTX 3000 GPUs, even the high-end ones. Red Dead Redemption 2 at 1440p, this GPU absolutely destroys even an RTX 3090. Take a look at these TimeSpy scores. The fake RTX 4080 got over 19,000 graphics score, and I just threw a 3080 onto TimeSpy and it only got 17,013. Now you may be wondering, why am I calling it a fake RTX 4080? Of course the 4080 is supposed to destroy RTX 3000, but there's a big catch. Look at the specs of this 4080. This is a real RTX 4080, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, 256-bit memory bus, and then this is the fake RTX 4080, 12 gigabytes of VRAM, 192-bit bus. You may be thinking, well, isn't that the 4070 Ti? Isn't that the GPU that Nvidia called the 4080 12 gigabyte but changed? No, I'm not talking about that one either. This one only goes up to 175 watts. All that performance destroying RTX 3000 is only 175 watts. That is a laptop GPU. And why is it a fake 4080? Nvidia shouldn't be calling it a 4080. I mean, at best case, it only matches some of the 4070 Ti desktop GPU. Horizon Zero Dawn, it got 135 FPS on Ultra 1440p, about roughly what an RTX 3080 can get, so it's not always the most impressive. Of course, 175 watts or below, that's always going to be pretty impressive for the efficiency it's putting out, but this is going to be a much more cut down GPU than any of the desktop GPUs. It doesn't come close to a real RTX 4080, even though ironically sometimes it does come pretty close to the 4070 Ti, which the specs can be very similar in some cases, and the 4090 laptop GPU definitely can match the 4070 Ti in many cases, but even that is a fake 4090. It does not come anywhere near close, really even a full desktop 4080, even though it also has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Nvidia does so many things right with giving us a lot of performance in a small form factor, but then it goes ahead and does so many things wrong with its marketing. Why can't they just call this a M GPU for mobility? That way people know that it's not going to be anywhere near the desktop GPUs. I've been testing out this Alienware M16, and even compared to most desktop systems, the numbers are super impressive. It has 2 vapor chambers, so the cooling is really good. Of course, with 4 small fans, which also is not typical in a 16-inch laptop, it's going to be a little bit noisy, but you can run them with a fairly silent profile without really thermal throttling all that much, which is really impressive, showing how Nvidia can definitely put out some pretty good performance here without having to be the absolute hottest thing that wouldn't work on a small form factor. Of course, this is also paired with the Intel 13900HX processor, which is pretty impressive as well, even though that one is limited to 55 watts. Technically, you can unlock it on this laptop. It goes all the way up to 157 watts, which is how you can get some of these really insane numbers. You may be thinking, isn't it just cheaper and better to build like a desktop PC? Of course, yeah, but some people need a laptop, so that argument really doesn't hold any water. You just need to be able to travel, so sometimes it's very valuable to have this much performance in a laptop. And then the question of price will arise as we're talking about Nvidia here. Let's start with the 4090 laptops. You're not getting 4090 performance, but some of the prices and US prices are absolutely outrageous, like $46.99 for this MSI Titan. In Europe and even in other countries, the pricing goes well over $5,000, which is pretty ridiculous. But in the same breath that they're really expensive laptops, let's go back to this 4080 version. The price actually isn't as bad as you would think. This particular model was $25.99 with this high-performing Intel processor and the 4080. If you like Alienware or not is a different point, but it does have some pretty good build quality. The thermals are really good. Even the screen, only 300 nits, is underpowered compared to other things on the market when you read the spec sheet, but in actual use, the colors are pretty nice and it looks pretty good in games. It'd be nice to have 500 nits or one of the little mini LED laptops, but then you're going to be paying a lot more money. So at $25.99, the pricing isn't all that terrible considering you're getting performance that can rival the best RTX 3090s and 3090 Ti desktop GPUs, and even in some cases, you even get pretty close to a desktop 4070 Ti. But it's still not a real 4080. Even with all of those impressive specs packed into a small, efficient package, why can't Nvidia just call it a 4080M? A lot of people that don't know about PC parts are just going to assume that it's going to be the best performing one. And here's the kicker. For laptops, there really isn't anything better. This 4080 and the 4090 are the absolute best you're ever going to find on the market for now. AMD doesn't really have an answer to this anywhere near this type of performance. So Nvidia is already at the top. This just creates an unnecessary confusion, and some of the prices are really, really high, and some people are going to think they actually got a 4090 when they pay almost $5,000. It really is the best in class, and nothing really comes close. I guess that's part of the reason they can be so aggressive in their marketing tactics and not really care what they do, just like they do in the desktop space. Remember the 3080 at $699? That was a great desktop GPU at that price that nobody was able to get. Soon after, Nvidia introduced the 3080 12GB with minimal performance increases, and that went up to over $1,200. So if you compare the stuff now to just one step behind us, one generation basically, the prices do seem like they didn't change that much. The 3080 12GB is around the same price as a 4080 16GB. So you may be asking, what's the big deal? Well, if you go back one generation or even a little bit more with laptops, you can see prices generally were just considerably better, like with the 20 series, when the GPUs actually performed much closer to what the specs were on desktop GPUs. The mobile GPUs are just way too dissimilar to the desktop parts. And then you're going to have stuff like this. Look at Hardware Unboxed. They posted a video saying how the desktop 4090 absolutely destroys the laptop 4090, but it's a disservice to the 4090 laptop GPU, which when you think of how efficient it is at only 175 watts, how it fits into a very small chassis, it's impressive how the performance is. So then you compare it to a desktop 4090, of course it's going to absolutely destroy it because you can put a system together for cheaper than a laptop that's going to be really, really far ahead, but it's a disservice to that laptop. If you call it something else, like a mobility GPU or something like that, then it's going to be a different comparison, and then you have to respect the type of performance Nvidia is putting out here. But that's just an example of that really aggressive marketing and how sometimes it kind of comes back to bite them in the face, because at the end of the day, this is actually a pretty stellar product. If you have to game on the go, there's going to be nothing else like it unless you want to lug around the mini ITX or even a larger desktop, but then you're going to need a monitor and keyboard. This is an all-in-one small package with really impressive performance. It's not quite a desktop GPU, but it's certainly coming pretty close.